Story 1, just sitting around thinking. Nobody sits around and thinks anymore. I got bored as a child, but I also learned a lot about life by just reflecting on it. Story 2, blowing into a game cartridge was like performing CPR for fun. Kids today will never understand that sacred ritual of revival. Story 3, life before social media or the internet was different. Nothing I did in my youth was immortalized forever online, and I am eternally grateful for that fact. Story 4, avoid taking too many pictures with your camera to conserve film, as it can be expensive. Story 5, I had a really cool rock, but I accidentally dropped it from a boat. The water was pretty deep, so I doubt any kids will find it today. It's already 9 p.m. Story 6, I may have the wrong name for it, but it is called a skip it. It is a device that goes around one ankle with a spherical, bulging section in the middle. You use your momentum to skip it and lift the other leg to avoid it striking your ankle. Story 7. Someone else already mentioned this, but I'm saying it again to emphasize that I do not feel the need to look at any type of screen. It's sad that all kids today want is a screen, whether it's a television, phone, tablet, computer, or video game. It is very sad. Being outside, riding a bike with the wind in your hair, trying to balance and take your hands off the handlebars, climbing a tree just for the sake of it. Those were the days. I feel like Generation X truly had it made. Life wasn't perfect, but it was fun to grow up during that time. We knew exactly when to come home, when the streetlights came on. I am happy I raised my son and daughter in much the same way I was raised. I knew what they were doing. I taught them the rules. I taught them to show respect and to be appreciative. I taught them to be kind but not to tolerate mistreatment, and it was good and okay to defend someone smaller or less fortunate from bullies. My daughter is 29, and my son would be 33 now. I am so proud of them both. My daughter knows this, and my son knew this. Story 8. Riding bikes, playing with other kids in the neighborhood, and not coming home until dinner time while parents don't worry about where you've been all day. I drive a truck through different neighborhoods all day, all year long, and never see this. Story 9. Cigarette smoke was inescapable, especially indoors. I am glad that more people have quit. It is quite disgusting. Story 10. Going to a video rental store and trying to agree on a movie as a family. A movie that you would sit down and watch together with no one scrolling on a device. Story 11. Dial-up internet, getting up to change the TV channel, going to a video rental store to hire a movie, a corded home phone, and hanging up on someone forcefully. Story 12. When your favorite movie or game disc gets a scratch on it, you have to go through the lengthy process of trying to fix it, which often involves toothpaste, with only about a 10% chance of success. Eventually, you must accept that it is irreparable and buy it for the third time this year. Story 13. Going to the internet. When the internet was dial-up, you would go to a designated place to be online. Kids today are always online. They have the internet in every pocket. Story 14. 1. Playing outside until the streetlights come on. Super Nintendo having to blow into the cartridge when the game gets hot. Station wagons with a back row seat that faces the back window and not having to wear a seatbelt. Fighting with family members to get your turn to use the house phone. Penny candy and Pepsi in a glass bottle that cost 25 cents. Knowing not to get smart, roll your eyes, ignore, curse, smack your lips, or be disrespectful to your elders unless you want a shoe, belt, hand, or tree switch across your backside. Going to the drive-in, using a payphone, playing tag. 10. That music channel on regular television where you would change the top knob to 30 and change the bottom knob to the music channel. Story 15. The modem connection sound was once a meme. Waiting for simple images to download felt like waiting for full-blown applications. The transition from analog to digital media. Story 16. My sister-in-law and I were telling her kids how we had to call our friend's house and speak to their parents to ask if they could come to the phone. We might also negotiate a time to call back when they were finished with their chores or homework. Hello, Mrs. Smith. This is Allison. Is Chrissy available to speak? Story 17. There are so many bugs on the windshield. Is this different where I live now? Or are there actually fewer bugs on the windshield? Story 18. Being able to play and hang out without any adults around is important. Running around on your own as a young child, starting at about age 5, and figuring things out for yourself and your friends contributes to significant personal growth. Story 19. Printing out MapQuest. Hearing the sound of a door opening and rushing to the computer to see if your crush just logged on to AOL Instant Messenger. Story 20. Being on call for a minimum wage retail job at the mall is challenging. No kids today would accept spending a Saturday waiting around to possibly work a 4-hour shift, especially for $4.25 an hour. Good riddance to that situation. Story 21. Making prank calls to Texas Roadhouse 37 times in a row because caller IDs didn't exist. At one point, the person answered and said, "You little kids are in the parking lot laughing at us, aren't you?" My friend and I burst out laughing and hung up. We didn't call back that night. Anyway. Story 22. Waiting for the PlayStation 1 and 2 home screen to boot after cleaning the disc thoroughly. That was more suspenseful than any horror movie. Story 23. Life before social media and mobile devices took over was quite different. None of our antics were documented, and our parents didn't know where we were or what we were doing until we got home or someone told on us. Story 24. Sit down for meals every night with the family, engaging in real conversation without anyone at the table mindlessly looking at a smartphone. Story 25. Independence means being off the grid and doing your own thing without the influence of an audience, social media, or unnecessary opinions. It involves learning from personal experiences instead of relying on online sources. It is a process of trial and error. Story 26. We would buy cherry bombs and flush them lit down the toilet at school to blow up the plumbing. They banned real cherry bombs years ago. If I remember correctly, by the time I was old enough to be doing that, they were already banned, and we would get them from someone who made them in his chicken houses. They looked just the same. Story 27. The directions booklet from video games. I always excitedly read those to see screenshots of the game before playing it. Story 28. Cable television. I guess I had Foxtel growing up, but Foxtel isn't worth it anymore and was disappointing in the final years we had it. The channels we watched are either non-existent now, such as 111 and Boomerang. Do they still have lifestyle? The variety is much less than in previous years, especially when considering Fox 8. I barely remember anything about it. I got glued to the Nintendo 3DS and The Sims on the computer at age 10, and that was my entertainment. The ads were quite annoying, though. Story 29. I once met several Holocaust survivors and had a conversation with one who had been an adult at the time about his experiences. Story 30. Ordering something and having to wait weeks for it to arrive. Uncertain about when it will finally show up. Story 31. Found it. It's a skip it. Story 32. No seatbelts in the station wagon. Manual crank lever to open and close windows. Fire hydrants sprinkle water on hot days. Story 33. Recording the top 40 on the tape deck, but you didn't want to catch the DJ talking, so you hovered over the record and stop buttons to make sure you cut them out. Story 34. Racing to the house phone when it rings, convinced the call is for you. Story 35. Having a difficult experience while in bed on their 10th birthday. At least I hope not. Story 36. When mom said it was time to get off the internet and go to bed, I didn't listen, so she picked up the phone and disconnected me. Story 37. Having to call a premium cost phone number to receive an orange rubber man through the post. Thank you, Tango, your catchphrase still lives on. Story 38. Roller skates with metal wheels attached to your shoes. You could feel the concrete long after removing them. Story 39. Talking to friends on the phone in the kitchen because it had the longest cord. Dial phones in general, but especially party lines, where you had to recognize your own ring versus your neighbor's rings, while sharing a single phone line with other houses. This included not only your own family, but also up to 4 other families. Story 40. Riding my bike in the morning and being out for an entire day without a phone, money, or a plan brings pure freedom. Story 41. Glancing at a bank sign for a moment reveals the time and temperature. Now, several bank advertisements are crammed between this information, but I only have a brief moment to glance at it while driving by. Story 42. Recording mixtapes from the radio onto a cassette for when you drive around. Pressing record as soon as you hear the song begin. Story 43. I was just telling my 10-year-old the other day how we used to dial up to the internet, and it took a really long time. She was quite shocked. Story 44. All the playground games include Foursquare, Red Rover, the whole class playing jump rope with various rhymes like Cinderella dressed in yellow, kickball, and dodgeball, especially when it rains and everyone must stay indoors. Story 45. Rushing to use the restroom or find a snack before the commercials end, and waiting for the channel to appear on the TV guide to see what is on next. Story 46. Winning a free soda from a bottle cap. One of the women who lived in our apartment complex worked for Dr. Pepper. She would collect handfuls of winning caps and give them to my sister and me for taking out her trash. She was great. Story 47. Going to the local movie rental store to get films to watch for the weekend. After riding your bike around the neighborhood, stopping to throw rocks, play in the creek, and find swimming holes. Story 48. Hanging out with questionable individuals who were likely too old for me to associate with and engaging in dubious activities. Story 49. Putting tape over the tab of a VHS cassette from the video store and dubbing your short films over the previews at the start. Is it just me? Story 50. Being 8 years old and walking a mile each way to school without supervision, across a large city street, in over a foot of snow was a common experience. My mom was home. It wasn't her problem. This wasn't abuse or neglect. Every parent in the neighborhood did this. Every parent in every city did this. By 12, we were capable of taking a bus to meet friends at the mall and managing our money well enough to ensure that after having fun, we still had bus fare to get home. Today, there is an entire generation living at home with their parents at 45 who do not work due to anxiety. While anxiety is real, labeling a lack of desire to work as anxiety when it is actually laziness is also valid. Story 51. Struggling and solving problems on my own in comparison to my siblings. There is nothing wrong with a little struggle. Not everything in life will be handed to you. I dealt with challenges on my own. I didn't have any adults who would bother to help me. I taught myself to do everything. That makes me more of an adult than my siblings will ever be. Unfortunately. Story 52. Phones with long, twisted curly lines. There was one phone in the house that I had to drag into the closet for privacy. Story 53. Leaving the house in the morning with my bicycle without food or water, and not returning until the porch lights came on. Story 54. Not having a phone. The only phone in the entire house hung on the wall in the kitchen, and you weren't allowed to answer it. Researching with an encyclopedia set. Not having a television. Your parents had one black and white television, and you didn't get to choose the channel or actually watch it for more than 30 minutes a day, if that. It was mostly for watching the news. Kids played outside, often miles away from home, using an outhouse, living in a house without running water, only a well outside, cooking dinner on a wood stove, as that was the only stove in the house, sleeping around the wood stove in winter because that was the only room with heat, taking a bath in a creek in summer and in winter, washing with warm water in a basin, learning to drive at age 7 and driving yourself to school at 13 or 14, coming home from school, going out to feed the animals and milk the cow before supper, then getting up in the morning to milk the cow before getting ready for school, drinking warm milk for breakfast, fresh from the cow, swimming in the pond, waiting until all the cows are out before going in. There are more, but that should be enough. Story 55. In the 1970s, selling Girl Scout cookies door to neighbors and relatives was common. We considered it cheating for parents to take orders at work. Now, it involves parents, online orders, and girls with tables at supermarkets. Story 56. Hanging out in old houses or new construction, watching 6 television channels, playing tag in the dark, having water fights, and walking around looking for ice with skates on. Swimming in puddles after heavy rain when the drains are blocked, riding in the back of a dump truck to go swimming, playing with tag, climbing trees, playing Nicky Nicky Nine Doors and making prank calls. I could go on. Story 57. Adults had no idea what we were doing outside, and there was no way to reach us until we came home. We felt truly untethered. At times, it was also frighteningly unsafe, but I am still here. Story 58. Requesting songs on the radio. If you didn't own the album and we didn't have streaming services, that's how we would be able to listen to it on demand, if we were lucky. Story 59. Existing outdoors for hours completely alone with no cell phone was some of my favorite time, spent with a portable music player and a machete in the woods. Story 60. Walking across the tracks, through the field, and into the woods by the creek, I just did whatever came to mind. I climbed a sapling until it bent back to the ground. I started a fire and built a bridge over a small stream leading to the creek. I set the bridge on fire and climbed into what I later realized was a coyote den. We mistakenly called it a bear den, but there are no bears in the area. I made a fire by the den to smoke out the animal and left 3 fires going while I built a fort. Then I went home for dinner. Story 61. I am currently waiting for my favorite show to come on television. Before the advent of streaming services, if you missed your show, it was either gone or you had to wait until the network aired reruns. Story 62. A cable television box with 10 slots and a slider that moved up, down, left, and right was how you selected the cable television network you wanted to watch. After a certain time at night, some networks switched to obscure channels catering to older audiences. Story 63. I'm going to totally date myself, but these devices of self-inflicted torture were called clackers, and they were evil. Story 64. Most cars are push-button starts, right? Recently, I had a rental car with a traditional key, so I encouraged the kids to come and see how to use an old-school car key. I won't even mention manual transmissions. Story 65. Rotary dialing can lead to accidentally entering the wrong digit and having to start over. This can be frustrating, especially when signing up for university courses. Story 66. Those wooden playgrounds were built like fortresses. Now we have these boring plastic playgrounds with soft flooring. Where is the fun in that? Story 67. Sprinting down the block to my best friend's house during the commercial break to watch the rest of the episode with her. Story 68. Racing to Blockbuster on Fridays to get the new release movie on VHS was exciting because they had limited copies available. Getting punished at school. Music channels playing music around the clock. Online chat rooms. Dial-up internet. The television shutting off at midnight followed by the national anthem. Showbiz Pizza, not Chuck E. Cheese. Changing the TV channel with a knob on a television that weighs 300 pounds. Book It. CD players and Atari gaming consoles. Story 69. Getting free phone calls from payphones involved unscrewing the mouthpiece and removing the wires to use against the receiver. However, one could be shocked. Enduring electrocution was considered worth the free phone call. Story 70. They will never experience what it was like to play Halo 3 and Halo Reach at their peak. The fun of Forge and the connections you built with strangers from all around the world were amazing. I remember talking with my cousins about games we were nostalgic for. They kept discussing Call of Duty, Black Ops 1 and 2 or Modern Warfare 2. When I brought up Halo, they just said, "Oh yeah, that one was good too." I will always have fond memories of playing these games. Story 71. Rotary phones, payphones, making mixtapes from the radio, VHS, Betamax, and Blockbuster being out of the new release you wanted to see. Story 72. Being unreachable because there were no mobile phones. We could have been anywhere, and our parents wouldn't have known. It was great. Story 73. Spend the day by themselves, from morning to dinner time, with no one asking what they were up to. It's amazing how far we would get from home riding our bikes. Freedom. Story 74. Vague directions to unfamiliar places. Perhaps you have a map, perhaps not. In that case, you can only hope the delivery person can find your house. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.